Home prices exploded. Small towns became luxury markets overnight. And people rushed into the state believing prices would never come down. But now, something dangerous is happening beneath the surface. Homes are sitting longer. Price cuts are spreading. And in some Idaho cities, the slowdown has already begun. Experts are starting to warn that parts of Idaho's housing market may be entering the early stage of a major correction. And the scariest part, most homeowners still don't see it coming. Just a few years ago, Idaho became one of the hottest real estate markets in America. Families escaped expensive states like California and Washington, searching for cheaper homes, quieter neighborhoods, and a better quality of life. At first, it seemed like the perfect move. Cities like Boise, Meridian, Nampa, and Coeur d'Alene exploded with growth. New construction appeared everywhere. Neighborhoods doubled in value. And investors flooded the market hoping to make fast profits. But housing booms always create one dangerous illusion: that prices can only go up. And now, that illusion may finally be breaking. Because behind the headlines and luxury developments, the warning signs are growing rapidly. Starting with number 10. Number 10, Twin Falls. Twin Falls was once considered one of Idaho's hidden gems. Affordable homes, quiet neighborhoods, and a slower lifestyle that attracted families escaping crowded cities. But during the pandemic housing frenzy, everything changed. Prices surged rapidly. Developers expanded aggressively. And demand exploded almost overnight. For a while, it looked unstoppable. But there was one major problem. Local wages never kept up with housing prices. That meant many homes were no longer affordable for local residents. And now the consequences are starting to appear. Homes are sitting on the market much longer than before. Price reductions are becoming more common. And sellers are beginning to compete aggressively for buyers. Some homeowners who bought near the peak are already feeling pressure, especially those with high mortgage payments. But experts fear something even worse could happen if the economy slows further. Because smaller markets like Twin Falls often struggle when buyer demand disappears. And what's happening in Idaho Falls may be even more concerning. Number 9, Idaho Falls. Idaho Falls looked more stable than many overheated housing markets, at least on the surface. But behind the scenes, investor activity quietly exploded. Rental properties increased rapidly. Speculative buying became common. And prices climbed much faster than local incomes could realistically support. For a while, investors made easy money. Then interest rates changed everything. Suddenly mortgage costs skyrocketed. Buyer demand weakened. And profits started shrinking fast. Now some investors are trying to exit before prices fall further. And that creates a dangerous situation. Because investor-heavy markets can reverse very quickly. When investors buy together, prices rise rapidly. But when they rush to sell at the same time, the decline can become brutal. And this next city may be showing the clearest warning signs so far. Number 8, Caldwell. Caldwell benefited massively from Boise's affordability crisis. As Boise became too expensive, buyers moved farther away searching for cheaper alternatives. And Caldwell became one of the biggest winners. Demand exploded. Construction expanded. And entire neighborhoods appeared almost overnight. But markets built on overflow demand can become extremely vulnerable once affordability breaks down. And no, that's exactly what seems to be happening. Inventory is rising rapidly. Builders are struggling to move homes, and buyers are becoming increasingly cautious. Some sellers are already cutting prices aggressively just to attract attention. But perhaps the biggest danger is psychological, because once buyers believe prices may continue falling, many stop buying completely. And when that happens, housing markets can freeze surprisingly fast. But this was only the beginning, because what happened in Nampa shocked many analysts. Number 7, NAMPA. During the pandemic housing boom, few Idaho cities grew faster than Nampa. At one point, demand became almost unbelievable. Homes sold within days. Bidding wars became normal, and developers rushed to build entire new communities as fast as possible. For a while, it felt like the growth would never stop. But rapid expansion created dangerous pressure beneath the surface. Too many speculative buyers entered the market. Too many homes were built too quickly, and local wages failed to keep pace with rising prices. Now the market is beginning to cool dramatically. Homes that once received multiple offers are sitting unsold. Builders are offering incentives, and price reductions are becoming increasingly common. But this is where things get more dangerous, because many homeowners bought near the peak using massive mortgages. And if home values continue falling, some could end up trapped in properties worth less than what they paid. That fear alone can change an entire market. But what's happening in Meridian may be even more alarming. Number 6, Meridian. For years, Meridian represented the perfect suburban success story. Modern neighborhoods, luxury developments, top-rated schools, and endless expansion. Families poured into the city searching for safety, space, and opportunity. And during the housing frenzy, prices exploded. But much of that growth depended heavily on out-of-state migration. Buyers from California and Seattle arrived with larger salaries and bigger budgets. That pushed local home prices far beyond what many Idaho residents could realistically afford. And now, the migration wave is slowing down. Remote work flexibility is shrinking. Economic uncertainty is growing. And demand is no longer strong enough to support runaway price growth. Homes are staying on the market longer. Sellers are quietly lowering prices. And competition among homeowners is increasing rapidly. Some experts believe Meridian may face a prolonged slowdown if affordability continues collapsing. But then there's Coeur d'Alene, a city that became the symbol of luxury housing excess. Number 5, Coeur d'Alene. Few places in Idaho experienced a housing boom as extreme as Coeur d'Alene. Luxury buyers flooded the area. Vacation homes skyrocketed in value, and investors treated the city like a guaranteed money machine. At the peak of the frenzy, prices seemed completely unstoppable. But luxury markets are often the first to weaken when uncertainty enters the economy, because high-end buyers disappear quickly during unstable times. And now the warning signs are spreading across the city. Inventory is climbing. Expensive homes are sitting unsold for months, and sellers are beginning to slash prices behind the scenes. Some homeowners who expected massive profits are now struggling to find buyers at all. And if recession fears continue growing, analysts believe luxury-heavy markets like Coeur d'Alene could face some of the sharpest corrections in the state. But this next city may be facing an even bigger hidden risk. Number 4. Post-FALLS. Post-falls exploded during the remote work revolution. Workers from expensive coastal states rushed into Idaho searching for lower costs and larger homes. For a while, the strategy worked perfectly. Prices surged rapidly. Construction expanded aggressively. And demand looked endless. But the market depended heavily on one thing: remote work. And now, that foundation is beginning to crack. Some companies are forcing workers back into offices. Others are cutting remote positions entirely. That sudden shift is quietly weakening migration demand across Idaho. Homes in post-falls are taking longer to sell. Inventory is increasing, and buyers are becoming much more cautious. But experts fear another hidden danger is developing: over-leveraged homeowners. Many buyers stretched their finances to enter the market during peak prices. Now rising ownership costs and weakening home values are creating serious pressure. And what's happening in Eagle may be even worse. Number 3. Eagle. Eagle became one of Idaho's most prestigious housing markets during the boom years. Luxury homes expanded across the city. High-end developments appeared everywhere. And wealthy buyers rushed into the market believing prices would continue climbing for years. For a while, it looked like the perfect real estate success story. But luxury markets often become extremely fragile during economic uncertainty, because expensive homes rely heavily on confidence, and confidence is starting to disappear. Higher interest rates are crushing affordability even for upper-income buyers. Demand is slowing rapidly, and many expensive homes are now sitting unsold for months. Sellers who once expected bidding wars are suddenly competing against one another. Price reductions are increasing. Inventory is building. And some homeowners are quietly panicking behind the scenes. Because when luxury markets freeze, they can freeze fast. But what's happening in Pocatello may reveal an even deeper problem spreading across Idaho. Number 2. Pocatello. Pocatello remained quieter than many of Idaho's explosive housing markets. It never received the same national attention as Boise or Coeur d'Alene. But that may not protect it. During the housing frenzy, prices still climbed rapidly. And like many smaller cities, local wages never kept pace with rising home values. That imbalance is now becoming impossible to ignore. Buyers are hesitating. Inventory is growing. And homes are staying on the market far longer than before. But there's another issue making things worse: ownership costs, insurance, property taxes, maintenance, utilities. For many homeowners, the total cost of owning a home is becoming increasingly difficult to manage. And experts warn smaller markets can become extremely vulnerable once demand weakens. Because unlike major cities, they often lack enough buyers to stabilize falling prices. But the biggest warning sign in Idaho may still be Boise itself. Number 1. Boise. Boise became the symbol of America's pandemic housing explosion. At one point, it was one of the hottest real estate markets in the country. Homes sold within hours. Prices surged at historic speed. And investors flooded entire neighborhoods, hoping to make enormous profits. For years, people believed Boise was unstoppable. But the faster housing markets rise, the more dangerous they become when momentum finally breaks. And now Boise is showing warning signs everywhere. Inventory is rising sharply. Homes are sitting longer. Price cuts are spreading across multiple neighborhoods, and affordability has collapsed for many middle-class buyers. Mortgage payments that once seemed manageable have nearly doubled compared to just a few years ago. That single shift changed everything, because housing markets survive on buyers. And when buyers disappear, the pressure begins building rapidly. Builders are offering incentives, sellers are lowering expectations, and investors are becoming increasingly nervous about where prices could go next. Some analysts believe Boise remains significantly overvalued compared to local incomes. Others warn that if interest rates remain elevated through 2026, the slowdown could accelerate dramatically. But perhaps the biggest danger is psychological. For years, people believed Idaho real estate could only move in one direction. Up. Now that belief is starting to crack. Final conclusion. For years, Idaho represented the American housing dream. Affordable living, rapid growth, endless opportunity. But beneath the surface, the market became dangerously dependent on speculation, migration, and unrealistic expectations. Now many of those forces are weakening at the same time. Demand is slowing, affordability is collapsing, and inventory is rising across multiple cities. History has shown something important again and again. The hottest housing markets often become the most vulnerable when momentum finally breaks. And once fear replaces confidence, everything changes. The real question is no longer whether Idaho's housing market is slowing. The real question is how severe the correction could become before most homeowners finally realize the boom is over. And by the time many people finally notice, it may already be too late.